Zodiac Part 5 with Taurus and Nat Solf. We here have the 2D, 4D astral body split. Some info from Ascension Glossary mostly in this post. Due to the DNA damage our species suffered after the fall of Tara, the 4D astral body that made up our heart center was fractured, and the lower portion of the soul matrix astral layer became inverted upon itself and became lodged in our 2D sacral center. Thus, a portion of our original soul matrix fragmented and got stuck in the 2D dimensional layers of the planetary body and within our individual layers. When incarnating upon the earth plane, this distortion to our soul and heart center became a genetic block which further digressed angelic human DNA. Over time, these became generational distortions which manifested into the disconnection between the 2D elemental field of the physical body, the 1D unconscious mind, and both the lower and higher part of the astral identity that form into the soul matrix. Essentially, what this means is that when incarnating into a physical body on Earth, it was hard for the conscious mind of the personality to actually feel the experience of the soul while in a body. And this had the tendency to disconnect the functions of the heart center. You could say, sort of like survival for survival. These schisms in the light body layers also greatly contributed to the production of shadow selves, shadow personality alters, shadow elementals, and fragments in the soul matrix, which further proliferated personal miasma and planetary miasma. So I'll share more on that here and there throughout this series with this layer and the Cancer zodiac sign layer. So again, with Taurus, we have, as with other earth signs, the hexahedron or the cube. It is the second platonic solid per some lenses, and it is a square with 6 faces, aka 6 faces, 8 points, 12 edges, and 2,160 degrees. Represents the element Earth, and it's related to the intersection paths of the planets Saturn and Jupiter. Taurus and the instinctual mind. Within Keylontic science and elsewhere, it is said that there are 3 main layers of the lower mind that function together. And that's actually a note from the class that I taught on that. The first, second, and third chakras. These 3 layers function together and serve specific aspects of the ego in all humans. All 3 layers deeply impact each other and are interconnected, and yet they each have their own separate function and energy. When we understand how ego operates inside our mind, we are better equipped to heal the energetic imbalances of negative ego and the pain body triggers. It becomes less of like an identity in and of itself when it comes to like trauma healing. The internal structures of ego are also referred to as the houses of ego, and these help us determine which aspects of our personality would be considered the negative ego. Today, we are focused on or in the second dimension, which is controlled by, I don't know if that's the right proper word, controlled, the second chakra, and is connected to the second layer of the mind. Within this area, pain and instinctual memories accumulate and get stored here. In some sense, the earth is considered a hologram, and the hologram is an information storage hologram. And so we are experiencing not just memories from our own genetic lineages, but the entirety of a collective, but also all who we are and the frequencies connected to that. So there's various layers of that, of just being a human, but also all the layers of who you are and how you might connect to another person, whether they're alive or not, and how these memories get stored. Per Keylontic science, the ideology is that there are hidden mind control programs that are socially engineered to enslave human consciousness via these aspects of the ego and pain memories. It's not just Keylontic science, but again, I guess I didn't edit this slide well, and it was what I was talking about in class. Here within the instinctual mind, there are 7 houses of ego, and they exist in individual fields as well as the collective human consciousness on Earth. And so we're looking at the instinctual mind, which is subconscious, even though talk to different people and there's all sorts of ideologies here, but I'm literally speaking to stuff we would feel and sense, but not be consciously aware of in our mind well enough to know that people just like to call things karma, but we could pull it back a little bit and look at Taurus with the law of correspondence and Libra, the other Venusian character, with the law of cause and effect, and how cause and effect is more so what we're looking at when we're looking at a spectrum of karma. And it's not really about like doing bad and getting bad. It's more that we live in this like living atmospheric kaleidoscopic holographic plane, and we do matter. It isn't just some dream or a simulation that doesn't mean anything in a certain way. And that's all sort of like a design for people to belittle this experience when it is everything else. Everything is everything here. It doesn't mean if someone else is a murderer that you are too, but if you kill bugs, maybe that's the way it comes through. I don't know, but I'm also not speaking that black and white or extreme about all of this. And yet again, take it with a grain of salt and apply it for your own self with your own brand of discernment. Okay. Addictions rule much of the unconscious population of the human collective, leaving people to numb and distract themselves as to not feel the pain. When one's heart chakra is closed, it is easier for them to step into this numbness, unable to identify their feelings moment to moment, so instead turning towards a certain habit or substance. Other things that can contribute to this closed off energy is a blackened heart, as well as soul fragmentation. I personally believe that people feel trapped within their own fields or bodies, having the memories that we're all connected to float around in their subconscious, or having the memories that we are all connected to float around in their subconscious, feeling them to some degree, but fully unable to recognize a truth within them or even identify what the memories are. Like this could be daydreams or something in the back of your mind or something so seemingly random, or you're watching something and it very emotionally touches and triggers you in a way that you go, that doesn't make sense with who I am, etc. And so they are reminded of these things consistently through storylines in Hollywood, etc. And it mildly triggers people. So they get into habits of regularly numbing themselves, but calling it a lifestyle, a hobby, an interest, etc. When we cannot feel our feelings or step outside of the personality that we carry, we may be unable to believe in more than what we can perceive from just one dimensional lens. Self awareness is a gift as well as a tool. It takes getting to know yourself better to really and truly be able to discern who the self really is, moment to moment, as we are always changing. The second layer that we are focused on today is very connected to not just the emotional body, but the lower emotional body, and it's often called the pain body. Based on how you might actually want to approach looking at the conscious and subconscious minds, you could look at the second layer being directly impacted by the first layer to the degree the painful memory is experienced in the person's first body, the hard drive. So again, someone could be triggered by a memory they are not consciously or logically remembering, but they are fully feeling within their senses, within their body. These memories are from this lifetime as well as others. When painful memories are unresolved, they manifest as instinctual drives within a person's ego. The pain of these memories can be very powerful and tangibly felt, and when one is unable to identify or clear the storage of the first dimensional storage memories of the first dimensional body, the walls of separation are created in the second dimensional body. This is where the pain body really gets its name because it further creates amnesiac barriers that manifest in the ego as specific mental and emotional states. So this would be related to like cognitive dissonance and even like a reptilian brain, haha, layers, becoming triggered by things where, it could be you're hangry and you see a side of yourself where you're like, whoa, when I'm hungry, I'm a bitch. And that's fine. You don't need to be a nice person with everybody. But partially what I'm saying is these other layers that are so sneaky that one might not even be feeling the sensation of a part of them going, what am I doing? So if someone else asks or questions or is curious in some way, there's a defensive nature that arises. And it like makes a lot of sense. And it's that sort of energy that I think of often, which is like simple doesn't mean easy, which can be kind of like womp womp. But like really, if you look around and consider things, it makes sense that this is the state that people are in. And I don't think we can all say that we are fully free from this in a certain regard. And I think there's a certain sort of intention or agenda involved in who or where, like what sort of places or communities we might want to claim that we know the truth and we know the way to get to blah, 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 because it's a part of everything being everything. And it's like we have to become more clever as we become more clever. Okay, the walls of separation isolate the ego inside the person. As the person deeply attaches to the 3D belief systems generated by that negative ego state as their identity in the 3D matrix of reality, they can become easily disconnected from their heart and inner spirit. This disconnection this disconnection lends to a place that part of the hurt or traumatized ego identity may split off and hide itself. And this isn't always by actively doing something. It can happen from events occurring. Like I remember when I found my mom having a stroke when I was 5, and it was like I was here and then a part of me was like goodbye, and I was like I no, and I did, soul retrieval at some point, and it depends on the severity, but the severity isn't calculated by anyone else. It's the way that we experience things. That could be your sibling jumping out behind something to scare you, and the way that it stores in your body, it also stores like the smells, like all the senses are recording. um but okay, let me continue. This identity could have been created when one is a baby, a 6-year-old child, a teenager, or even in other timelines. This phenomenon is called ego sub-personalities, and they may be hidden behind the walls as a result from deeply experienced trauma. So, of course, it gets much worse when it is intentional, not necessarily through our own choice, but when it is others doing acts upon others. And I do in that 88 series on YouTube that I speak about, I do go into a little bit more of the effects of the amount of children and everyday citizens, but especially children who were tortured and murdered by scientists in a certain period of time, especially where there are things going on with what we may call intuition and certain planes of existence, that it's like literally these souls that are almost like trapped in this second dimensional layer because people lie and people obsess over secrets. And there's a part of them that gets triggered, and then that wall pops up, and they'll go, no, I will not look at that in the way that, could, let's say, relay to a fuller spectrum. But okay, let me continue yet again. These traumatized subpersonalities also hold a fragment of our spiritual energy or soul matrix because everything is everything. Within areas such as satanic ritual abuse, SRA, and MK Ultra, Hollywood, etc., the goal is to intentionally create these traumatized subpersonalities which fragment the mind and spiritual body, thereby causing harm to the internal energy structures of the person's aura and light body. The victim, victimizer, and the sexual misery software programs are popular ways to approach this goal, as it can be quite blanketed and impersonal and still feel personal to humans, especially those who don't quite remember who they are. When we are separated from our inner spirit, we are disconnected from our experience with God's source. The result is more pain, disconnection, and disease, which exacerbates the negative ego walls of separation that perpetuates the cycle of internal misery. The goal of our inner spirit is to find and locate those subpersonalities in order to heal them, reclaim them as children of God or what have you, so that the spiritual light can be reintegrated and brought back into wholeness and connection with God's source. Star seeds have an earth mission to heal these painful consciousness memories from other timelines, such as that which transpired during the galactic wars. That is being repeated on Earth in this end cycle. And I would also say, especially take that all with a grain of salt, because we are not here just to be star seeds, if you resonate with that. We're here to be a human, even if you want to call it or need to call it an angelic human. But consider why you need to do that. Because this is the life, we do the stuff. We're here to fuck shit up in the best way possible. Emotional triggers. Most of the time, when we experience an event in our lives in which a shocking and painful event occurs, It is uncovering not only false structures, but buried parts of the unconscious mind and cellular memories that are embedded in our bodies. Meeting the negative energy or blockages when this inner conjunction is made acts as the spiritual catalyst for great changes and potential consciousness transformation. It forces the surface or hidden fears located in the pain body to be brought out into the thoughts, emotions, behaviors, or in the impulses of the person.